It's time once again for another thrilling episode of Markout Radio. For the next hour, sit back, pull the stick out of your ass, and enjoy. Be warned though, smarks and internet know-it-alls will be offended, annoyed, and generally pissed off at what's about to happen to your ear holes. You've been warned. Now, Markout Radio.
That's right. Welcome back. Holy cow. Week to week, I just love my setups. I let people into my studio, and this is what happens. They crank them up because they can't talk into a microphone. I'm going to have to start cutting people out of the studio. All right, so welcome back to Markout Radio. It is Sunday, October the 16th, 2016. Dave with you. And listen, I love wrestling. I really do. It's pretty obvious that I'm a hopeless mark. But there are things that spring off from wrestling a lot of these times. And one of them was a couple weeks ago, I got an email and had the chance to set up an interview for you guys. And you know, it's good because it has a wrestling tie-in. And of course, listen, it's got a wrestling tie-in, but of course it's a promotion of other stuff too. So let's see here. Who do we got? We got Sam Lucio here with us this week. Sam, are you there?
I am. How are you?
Oh, I'm really good. And it is a dreary Sunday where I am. It's raining, which would normally mean I'd be doing something less constructive than being on the air.
It's actually pretty nice here in Pittsburgh.
Oh, you have a nice weather. See, and I hate it when people have nice weather and I got shitty. I'd rather you guys have shitty weather and I have nice weather, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, who wouldn't?
Now, Sam here is now the owner of his own brand of cigars, and they got 4 of them. And really, what caught my attention was that one of them has a most definite wrestling tie-in, and that is the Luchador brand. I'm just curious, where does this love for cigars come from for you?
Well, I mean, I smoked cigars, back in high school. And I was when I got out of the Navy, I got into the liquor industry and used to trade booze for cigars I couldn't afford. And it was just a passion that I just got into rolling cigars, got into, learning about them and everything I could. I couldn't get enough of it. And I started out as a sales rep and started again working on blends and developing lines and creating my own brand. I've been out on my own for about 7 years now. Wow.
Holy cow. Now, listen, it is not something that I'm wholly unfamiliar with. My old man smoked a lot of cigars, and I am one of those people that really enjoys that smell.
Right on.
I know that there's a lot of people I guess the first thing I got to ask is the vilification of tobacco in and of itself is baffling to me, but I'm just curious as to, it's not like alcohol. People will see cigarettes and right away it's, the big C conversation comes up and no one wants to talk about how like any kind of tobacco whatsoever is not that dissimilar from people that are big wine aficionados or whiskey aficionados. How do you sort of come out against, people want to just sort of start up a conversation by basically shutting down what you do?
Well, I mean, fortunately that doesn't happen too often, but the main thing is, premium cigars. I mean, they're all made by hand. By the time a cigar is in a consumer's hand, that tobacco has touched literally 250 to 300 pairs of hands. It's quite labor intensive. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with the industry, and it is a lot like wines. It's a lot like whiskeys. People you don't see people huddled outside by a bus stop puffing on cigars, because that's not how you enjoy a cigar. You're not trying to get a quick nicotine high like you would a cigarette. A cigar is meant to sit back, relax, and enjoy. And, it's certainly, even the FDA, who is now affecting our industry in some very bad ways, they've even produced a study which kind of goes against what they're trying to accomplish. But their study was that if 1 to 2 cigars a day poses no additional health threat at all. And, most people don't smoke beyond that as far as an average anyway. So, people are gonna like and not like anything. I mean, just like wrestling. I mean, there's plenty of haters in that world, and I just tune it out. It's that doesn't this is how I feed my family. So yeah, it really doesn't matter if someone's going to be that against it.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now you say you draw that similarity between people that are into wine, people that are into whiskeys, things like that. These days, with marijuana becoming more prevalent and stuff like that, there are marijuana aficionados and things like that. There's always seems to be, it sort of depends really on your audience. There are going to be people that are super into something and they're into it in a way that, in my opinion anyways, is healthy, where it's one of those debilitating, I'm addicted to this kind of habits. It's one of those things where, you know what, I'm about to sit back with a glass of wine, read a book, and I'm going to have a cigar at the same time.
It's very much like that, and it's more of a hobby. It's not a habit. That's kind of what we say a lot, because people that can't even afford cigars buy cigars because that's their hobby. It's not the days of just stockbrokers and lawyers or whatever that smoke cigars. That's so far from reality. You go to one of my cigar events and you're going to see all walks of life. I like to say that a cigar is kind of the great equalizer. It doesn't matter what your background is. When there's a common ground of cigars, it's conversations start happening. So it's very much something to sit and relax to. It's not a troublesome thing. It's a very social thing, which I think this country is lacking. Is ways to get together instead of in our phones and in our computers. So it's one of the last social efforts.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of those things where I know I've got a couple of buddies around here locally, and the reason why I bring up the wine and bring up the whiskey is because we do that once in a while. We'll get together, we'll sit down, sit down with the wives or whatever, or we'll sit down by ourselves and just chill out and just enjoy whatever it is that we're doing for our little hobby there. And there was a point when I was getting into finding some different kinds of tobacco for pipes. And really, there's tons and tons of stuff with that. And then one of the guys at the smoke shop that I used to go to all the time suggested that I give a cigar a try. He goes like, don't get me wrong, you can do just fine with the pipe and stuff like that, but there's just something to be said about a handmade cigar. And there's very few of them where I am, but there seems to be a growing concern that way. And one of the things I kind of wanted to bring up was your cigar events. You're hand rolling cigars at that event, really, aren't you?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I don't do it at every event, but I certainly do rolling events for sure. I just did one on Friday, as a matter of fact. I've been rolling cigars for 17 years. To me, it's kind of an icebreaker. It's a way, I mean, I'm a stranger in a room just like everybody else sometimes. So when I roll cigars, it becomes kind of an icebreaker. People are more willing to come up and talk and start a conversation instead of me just sitting in a corner being the owner of the brand. I mean, it could be awkward. And one nice thing about having the table is it just kind of it opens dialogue, starts questions, and I enjoy it. I love what I do. I love the industry, and I like to show it. And I like to educate people on how cigars are made, how they can be enjoyed, and so it's certainly an aspect of my business that I really enjoy. It's the hand-on approach.
Yeah, and you've got sort of a distribution parent company almost, right?
I have had distribution parent companies in the past. I'm completely on my own now. Yeah. But I've had other companies in the past distribute my product. But no, I'm 100% independent.
Nice. I like that. That's the cynical writer in me. I love that indie aspect of it.
It doesn't make things easy.
No, it really doesn't. It's an awful lot of work, and you kind of have to become a master of everything, like marketing and distribution and everything else. Is your stuff primarily available in the U.S., or you got a distribution into Canada, Mexico, or internationally beyond that?
Yeah, I'm available in all throughout the U.S. And certainly in other countries. I'm in I'll be in Canada probably in the next month or so. I just landed that deal, but you'll find my stuff in some places in France, in Germany, in Amsterdam, and London.
Very cool. Now, listen, I am Canadian, so I am interested in this whole Canadian distribution thing. Let's hear about that a little bit.
Well, I had an event in Niagara Falls, Canada side, at a cigar shop, and they were very interested in bringing in my brand, and the distributor was there, and he's they've been interested in trying to bring me in for a while, and we sat down and put together a deal, and I'm going to be available all throughout Canada here within the next, I'd say, the coming months. By the time the product actually gets there.
Oh, that's gonna be.
But I'm very excited about it because I don't have to worry about FDA.
Nope.
And then I don't have to worry. Canada has their own taxes, which is it's taxing.
Oh, they're incredibly insane.
What taxes Canada puts on tobacco is outrageous. But there are certain American taxes that I won't have to pay. If the product is shipped directly from Nicaragua to Canada. So, it's a wash, I guess, to some degree. But cigars are definitely a little more expensive in Canada than in the U.S.
Yeah, they definitely are. Like whenever the wife and I take a trip down to the States, I usually end up picking up more cigars there than I do when I'm up here. But like you say, it's that awesome tax thing. Now, is this going to be for all 4 of your brands of cigars, or is this just for 1 or 2 of them?
Well, initially it's going to be the white. I have a black white Luchador El Gringo. I've got a few other brands. I've got Desnudo, which is Spanish for naked. I've got Desnudo Beach, which is nude beach, and I have a few other small brands, a Boilermaker and a Tartan. What's going to be coming into Canada is going to be the white, the Luchador, more than likely the Luchador El Gringo, and Desnudo.
Awesome. All right, now listen. What intrigues me is that with a lot of the stuff that you're selling, like a lot of the different things that you're doing as far as marketing yourself and everything, you seem to be a great lover, as the cigar name insinuates, the luchador, of all things wrestling. Now, where did this come from?
Oh man, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid, early WWF days. I'm a product of the 80s. And I used to go down to the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh, which is no longer there, and watch the live venues. I watched one of Macho Man Randy Savage's first matches, and it was funny because back then they would drive into the arena, and Big John Studd had a custom made Lincoln with the steering wheel in the center of the car because he was so big he couldn't be on the left side. Yeah. So it looked like a go-kart for him, and this was a big Lincoln, but it just looked like Mario Kart, this big body in the car. But I've been a fan of wrestling for it's come and go. It's come and gone throughout the years. I would stop watching for a little while when I was in the Navy. I stopped watching wrestling, and then when Hogan became bad again, I got real into the WCW. And then kind of when the WWE bought the WCW, it kind of went down again. It was kind of nice having that competition. And I thought when Vince McMahon bought everything, it kind of made it a little bit vanilla for a little while. But now all these indies are kind of popping up, which is cool. And I've made a lot of good friends within the wrestling communities because of the Luchador and because of some of the events I've done. That some of the indie events are just fantastic. I don't know if you Big Time Wrestling. Flex Armstrong's a very good friend of mine. He actually plays the luchador for me at some of my bigger events, and he'll demonstrate moves and just kind of beat the shit out of me in front of everybody. But it's it's a lot of fun. A lot of wrestlers smoke cigars. Kevin Nash is a big fan of my brand, and I send him cigars out, and it's just cool, man. To see and meet some of my favorite wrestlers, or even just to be part of the atmosphere is I feel like a Make-A-Wish Foundation kid. I mean, I remember the first time I got up on the ring, I was doing an event at Snoqualmie Casino in Washington, and I think somebody sent you the YouTube video. It's called Mucho Libre or whatever. It's an event that they do, that we started every year. Yeah. Anyway, the announcer, I'm at the bottom of the ring, and he's like, I'm ready to come into the ring, and he's like, are you gonna jump up, or are you gonna use the steps? And I'm like, man, this guy's calling me out. I'm like, there's no way I can use those steps. So I jumped up on the mat, and then I catapulted myself off the top rope. And I've never done this before in my entire life. I've just seen it done. I have never sprung off the top, pulled myself and jumped over the ropes. And sure enough, I do it. I catch my back foot, but fortunately I corrected it and landed it. And it was like, the biggest rush ever, and then just getting in front of the crowd and getting them all riled up. And then I was in some of the wrestling bits, I'd smoke, blow smoke in one of the wrestlers' face so that the other guy would beat him or whatever. It was, it's been a blast. I love wrestling, and to be part of it through the cigar has been it's been really fun. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean it's like you say, it's that weird. It's not that it's all this PG versus Attitude Era stuff. It's just that it was much more interesting back when there was the NWO, and even at that point, WWE was doing some interesting things with Degeneration X and stuff like that. But it has really gotten very vanilla in the mainstream, whereas it's created this great boom time on the indie scene, which is not unlike the territory scene in my opinion, but it's created this great boom of guys want to be wrestlers, guys want to do this, and it's I got all the respect in the world for it. But then they really put themselves out there with these big well, I shouldn't say big, but they are relatively big indie promotions, and then they invite people that are really into it, that are going to play along with what they're up to, that aren't going to try to blow it up for them or anything like that. And I just love how you're so excited that you're going to try to get into the ring doing a springboard move and just.
It was awesome. The adrenaline rush it took a while for that high to come down. I mean, it was one of the few times in my life where I had a natural high, I guess. And I could feel really, I'm down at the ring watching some matches, and then, finally just, the adrenaline slows down and it comes down. And it was like, man, I want that back. I want that high again. It was so much fun.
It does take a while. It's easy to understand. Like, a lot of people say, well, when wrestlers transition back into everyday life after they've been wrestlers for so long, and then they run into troubles because their everyday life is so much more dull and boring than what they've gone through. It's really, once you've done that and gotten that rush, it is easy to understand exactly where they're coming from.
Oh, sure. And it doesn't matter the size of the arena. If you're good and can create an over and get the whole crowd going nuts, it's huge. And whether there's 200 people or 20,000, it's still an incredible feeling.
Yeah,
and you can just feel that electricity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now this promoting because some of the videos that I was sent for purposes of the show and everything, which I am going to throw up when we put the show up because they're really entertaining as hell. Promoting the Micro Wrestling Federation stuff, I've noticed that a lot of those end up not just in bars, but in cigar shops too. Now, is that, not to sound like a bit of a smartass here, but is that a size of the venue concern, or is that just because you're really into midget wrestling?
No, it's more the size of the venue. That's exactly the reason. I wanted to do a wrestling event at one of these some of these bigger shops, and we just couldn't really pull it off. And we realized that the micro, what is that? The MWF Micro Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
Their ring is very small, and they. Man, it's funny. When we agreed to all this, micro wrestling, I was concerned because I didn't want it to be a joke, and because midget wrestling, everybody's laughing, everything, it's all silly. But these guys are incredible. The show they put on is amazing. They're incredibly talented. They're very professional, and I've done 2 MWF events. And I would do 100 more. I just, they put on a great show. They certainly have fun. There's certainly funny spots throughout the show, as in any wrestling event. And but these guys are very talented. They got great moves, and they're good wrestlers, and they're fun to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem very tongue in cheek about understanding that at their size, there's going to be that weird dichotomy of, is this a joke or is this wrestling? And I know I had Short Sleeve Samson on the show shortly after his stint as, I think he was Mini Jerry Lawler or something like that. And we were talking about stuff about just midget wrestling in general. And he's a big proponent of midget wrestling events and midget wrestling promotions. And he's come up here a few times. We've gone to see his shows. He's been very accommodating with having us in there before the crowds get in and everything like that. But I'm always, my first indoctrination into midget wrestling was the mini versions of main event wrestlers. I think the first match I ever saw was Mini Goldust versus Mini Vader. And it is literally like the mini Goldust was put over the Goldust gimmick so hard, and the mini Vader looked almost like an average sized human being, like he was a big guy, and he did the moonsault the whole 9 yards, and it scared the shit out of me because he did the moonsault off of a legit top rope, and I thought he was going to hurt himself because it's like they're seriously into this athletic thing, and sometimes when they're using an average sized ring, they can legit put themselves in harm's way pretty easily.
Well, no different than a regular sized person or an average sized person. So it's, either way, you're putting your body at risk for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we've got this coming up now. Do you have any more brands that you're working on right now? You're working on maybe some blends or anything like that, or is there anything else that you're sort of trying to get some traction here as you're going forward?
Well, I've released a lot of new stuff within just the past month. So I'm kind of running with the Desnudo Beach, this Boilermaker, and the Tartan. I mean, those are 4 brands that are all relatively new. But I am always working on new stuff. I've got a project that I've been working on for about 3 years that I'm hoping to get finally finalized and in production. But it's just the way it is. I mean, everybody wants something new, and it's also what drives me too, is because you want to try new tobaccos and try different blends and different just whatever, different programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Sam, I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for coming on. I think it's been entertaining stuff. Hopefully some of the listeners learned a little bit about cigars as well as the uncomfortable love of wrestling.
Right, no doubt about it. No, it was definitely a fun. I'm glad I did the Luchador brand because it's been a fun brand to do. It's brought me closer to the wrestling world. I mean, look, I'm on a wrestling podcast, so I mean, it's that just shows you how things in my life have changed because of this brand. So it's evolved and it's exciting. So it's been a lot of fun. So Absolutely. I appreciate for sure you having me on.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Sam. We'll talk to you later.
You got it. Thank you.
All right. There we go, Sam Lucia, and his wrestling brand cigar of Luchador, among other ones. And, that's good. I'm glad that some of that stuff's coming up to Canada because, frankly, as unhealthy, quote unquote, unhealthy as it is, I am a big fan of cigars and of tobacco in general. Now, that being said, we're going to talk a little bit more about wrestling and get into that a little bit more. There was, of course, No Mercy last week and all the mediocrity of that. It's okay. So I'm being a little bit mean here, but No Mercy is the first quote unquote legit pay-per-view, I guess, for SmackDown. I don't know. It's weird because every time they sell these things, it's just like, oh, this is the first of this, and this is the first of that, and this is the most original of this, and blah blah blah. It's 19 pay-per-views. I can't keep track of that shit over the course of a year. So, that's right. Yeah, let's check out Sam's website. Go to Lucia Tobacco. So it's LECCIA-tobacco.com. And check out his stuff. He's got a cigar group there on his Facebook. They've got links from there. And check the shit out of that because that's good stuff. As soon as that stuff comes up here, I'm going to grab one of those. I'll let you guys know what I think of it when I get a chance to get my hands on those. Got a couple of tobacco shops up in my neck of the woods here that I'm going to definitely see if they can get that stuff. So anyways, No Mercy. Really interesting in a totally unrealistic way. Again, it boils down to really good wrestling with really weird production. And the sad thing is that there wasn't a lot of build for a lot of these things. And there isn't a lot of time to build these things into these matches because they spend a lot of time on the road with these house shows and whatnot. There really only is the one television show a week where they can actually spend some time building feuds or building anything up, and by the time they get to the pay-per-view, they're already ready to blow their wad after less than a 2-week build. So I don't know. It was very weird. But let's talk about let's talk about No Mercy, shall we really? Now in the pre-show we had Hype Bros and American Alpha defeating the Vaudevillains of the Ascension. Now I'm gonna say this again. There are great tag teams, and all 4 of these tag teams are good in and of themselves. There's absolutely nothing wrong with any of these guys. And the match itself was decent. I mean, there's nothing really to get excited about. There's no build. There's little call to have the Ascension around anymore because the WWE pretty much ruined anything they came in with. I mean, it came into all that hype, being, the tag team champs in NXT for fucking ever and just destroying everybody. And they came in, and for those of you who don't remember, they came in basically looking like the Road Warriors / Legion of Doom, and then talking shit about them, and then getting their asses kicked by pretty much every tag team on the main roster. And the WWE pretty much ruined them. And if you look at them, like at their physiques, Connor looks about how Connor has always looked. He's a big guy, but he's not going to be cut up for any stretch of the imagination. Victor was the cut up guy, the guy that was super in shape. And listen, the morale of being treated like a redheaded stepchild is clearly showing here. Sorry, it is. It sucks because I like the guy. He comes from around here. He worked around here for quite some time. I want them to keep him around. And I get that, when you're treated like shit, you really don't feel the need to put that extra effort forth. But unfortunately in the WWE, you have to put 120% in all the time or Vince shits on you. Sorry, that's how it looks all the time. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant because that's how it looks to everybody when everything's going down. Now, American Alpha just brought up Hype Bros. Well, one of them's been there for fucking ever. Vaudevillains. I don't know. They're not really doing anything with these poor fucking guys. And then that's the problem is that there was no build. There's nothing really all that interesting. American Alpha kind of sort of had an almost kind of sort of feud started with the Usos over who was getting the pins, but then they went heel. I would have thought that'd be a natural transition into a feud because American Alpha got screwed by the now heel Usos. So maybe they should have some matches back and forth, but doesn't seem like anything's going on there now. And again, I want to hate the Hype Bros because of Mojo Rawley, but I can't help but like them because his excitement is annoyingly infectious. Vaudevillains are a hilarious throwback type team, so why not put them over? But again, it's just one of those weird things where there's really nothing to do with these four teams, which is a shame because they have their own fucking tag titles. There's no reason why you couldn't have a tournament to find a legit number one contender or have legit feuds going on here. I mean, there's two heel teams here in the Vaudevillains and the Ascension. You got two legit face teams and no one's really feuding with anybody. There's just bad guys versus good guys in a company that apparently claims that there's no such thing as faces and heels anymore. So why would you put them in matches together? But whatever. The match itself, though, the wrestling was excellent. I gave it 3 out of 5. It lost points for having zero build, zero reason, no rationality applied to it whatsoever. And, of course, the play-by-play guys pretty much fucking ignoring it the entire time that it was going on. I mean, they talked about it every now and then, but that was it. Now, what was really jarring, I mean, I don't exactly have a problem with it. It was just jarring. Was that the world title match for WWE's title, like for the biggest title that they have apparently, because that's the title that replaced the world title and replaced the old NWA title / WCW title, which Styles holds right now, was the first match of the card. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't watch it, spoiler alert, but that was the first fucking match of the card. The champion of the company or of the brand was in the first match of the night. And it's I don't know. It's jarring. Because you expected, okay, fine. So Miz and Maurice were on the cover for the pay-per-view, giving me an awkward boner. And then you have Styles and Cena and Ambrose. So you figure that that's going to sort of be the main event. And then the main event ends up being a match that has been replaced 3 times. It's just very, very weird and jarring. Not terrible by any stretch, but usually in WWE history, the IC title would have led things off. But I guess you could lead it off with the women's title match. But because because the champ wasn't there. You couldn't have her in that. So kick it off with Styles as the champion, which is, listen, New Japan is the second biggest wrestling company in the world right now. And the unofficially anyways, the number 2 company as far as wrestling goes. I really can't see them starting off a show with their world champion. He's your world champion. I don't know. It's very weird. And the fact that it was a triple threat match was also very weird. I talked about that last week, that it was very odd that we're having a 3-way, when you very easily could have had Styles versus Ambrose in the return match, have Styles go over on Ambrose, or maybe it be close or whatever, but it pushes Ambrose back down the card, and then have Styles and Cena face off against one another for a build for a while. But it's just with so many fucking pay-per-views, so many people are watching less and less of the television show unless it happens to be on or they're bored. So you have quite a lot of time to let people see these matches. You don't actually have to blow your wad every single fucking time, but whatever. But Styles gets a pin over Cena, which I thought was good. I mean, it's not because I hate Cena, but I just thought it was, not saying that he's the face that runs the place or whatever the fuck this stupid gimmick was. But it does show that at least they're putting a little bit of effort behind Styles as the champion for a while. And Ambrose being relegated to not a secondary role in the match, but a secondary role in the storyline. But the production and the booking and the weird shit like that, the fucking writing, weird storylines and shit ruined an otherwise good match. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. It was a good match. Nothing wrong with it. It was a good match. But again, it just suffers under the weight of so much mediocrity in their production, which is baffling because they're, a multi-million-dollar company, arguably, and they should be able to put on something better than this. After that, Nikki goes over on Carmella. I didn't even really have a problem with that. It was a really good match. I mean, who the fuck knew Nikki had matches like this in her? Honestly, like a couple of years ago, if somebody had told me that Nikki Bella was going to have a match that I liked, I would have fucking slapped them in the face. But let's be honest here, Carmella really shined in this match. I'm a huge mark for her. She wrestles really well. She talks on the microphone really well. She puts over all the shit that they give her, including, I don't know what the fuck ring attire is supposed to be. I guess she's supposed to be like a soccer mom with wearing Lululemon shit to the ring. I don't know. But, I mean, it gets over. Shockingly, it gets over. And she's really good. Now, that being said, both women worked their asses off. That was one of the best matches of the night. I gave it 4 out of 5. I mean, even with the shitty fucking play-by-play shit where they were talking about guys during a fucking female match again, talking about matches that were just about to come up or coming up later in the card again during this match. It's a pay-per-view. You don't have to make people stick around. You've got their money. It's a pay-per-view. If this was on fucking USA and you wanted people to stick around for the fucking third hour, God knows why, then of course you push the last matches on the card. But on a pay-per-view, you've already got their money. You can concentrate. And a pay-per-view, you can concentrate on the match that's actually going on in the ring. And I feel like a lot of this fucking play-by-play shit that I have the biggest problem with is the fact that they don't concentrate on what's actually going on in the ring, and they start putting over what's coming up next. And it's fucking baffling to me, but the play-by-play, again, just pulled away from a perfectly good match. The weird angles and shit, that actually wasn't a problem. Again, the fucking zoom in, zoom out guy was there. I don't understand why they keep doing that. It's very fucking amateurish, but they bring that back. After that, Slater and Rhino get to keep their titles versus the Usos. Now, before I get into I want to do good things. Let's start with Dave's nice shit to say. The nice shit to say was that the wrestling was really good. Really good. I didn't know Slater had these kind of matches in him because usually he's in squash matches. So it's nice to see his actual wrestling repertoire, which really people have only been able to see on house shows. So it's nice to actually see it on fucking television for a change. Everyone knows how awesome Rhino is. All you have to do is queue up a tape of ECW once in a while. And listen, the Usos are the Usos. They got a good tandem move set, so why not? Now, I gave it 4 out of 5. Now, all of my nice things have been said. I'm now going to bury the WWE and the Usos right now. So when teams go heel and they're of other ethnic origins other than Caucasian, the WWE seems to feel like the most logical thing to do is to make them gangbangers. So the Usos now come out wearing Cholo gear, which is awesome because they're not Mexican. They're Samoan. But they came out wearing what can only be called Cholo gang gear and wrestled in that, and that just, oh God. You don't need, just because they're ethnic, just because they're not white, they don't have to come out wearing gang shit. They don't have to come out looking like shitty teenage gangbangers. They don't have to look like that. That's a conscious choice. And the fact that WWE put them in that, or that the Usos agreed to it, or even if it was the Usos' fucking idea, fucking shame on you, because holy fucking shit. How many times did we sit through The Rock and Rikishi being bad guys and not coming out in fucking Cholo gear and shit like that? Like, the worst that Rikishi did was that he started doing the dancing gimmick. But whatever. Look, the Rock was in a militant black group. The Rock was in a militant black group. Like, that was just horribly racist. I mean, Greenway's bits, his bits that are still up on our YouTube channel. Go check them out if you're watching this on YouTube. Are hilarious mockery of the WWE, not of the guys, of the WWE, and how they put colored people in fucking gimmicky, one-dimensional bullshit gear. They look good as faces. They could have transitioned to doing something different with heels. They didn't have to go into gangbang mode. They could have had wrestling, like when Randy Orton goes heel. He stops wearing colorful briefs and wears black briefs when he goes heel. That's fine. Do that kind of shit. Do it with fucking colored people too. Why are we having to fucking sit through the blatant racism inherent in dressing Samoans up like they're some sort of gang members because now they're heels? Isn't that a little one-dimensional and cliche? I mean, even for wrestling, isn't that a little cliche? But anyways, the wrestling itself was phenomenal. So it does lose a couple points for being stupid, the gimmicks and shit, but it doesn't lose any points for being really great wrestling. After that, I thought this match had been canceled, and I was happy that it had been canceled, to be frank with you, because the Baron Corbin, Jack Swagger match that was supposed to be in the pre-show that was replaced by the Hype Bros American Alpha Vaudevillains Ascension match did not happen in the pre-show. And so I was happy. I was happy that it was no longer in the pre-show. Maybe that makes me a jerk. I don't care, but I was happy that it was gone because who the fuck thinks Jack Swagger is actually going to, be a contender in this, right? Now, of course, you had to know, and I mentioned this last week, that Swagger's not going to win. You had to know that was the case. You just had to know that. However, it was a match. I mean, I guess it succeeded in putting Baron Corbin over as a guy that can beat a former champion that's kind of let himself go around the middle, who's still doing the We the People gimmick, which the fans are still behind him on, which is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But holy shit. I mean, it was a wrestling match. There was nothing really all that exciting about it. There was nothing really all that shocking or interesting about it. There was no build, of course, at all. They just keep putting Baron Corbin in dark matches and then throwing it somewhere on the card to remind us that this monkey still exists. And by the way, they keep putting this guy over. What do they keep saying his weight is? Something like 265 or something like this, at 6'5" or something like that, ridiculous thing like that. Have you looked at this guy? Have you seen how big he is? He looks like he might be 6'5" because he was pretty close to the same height as Jack Swagger. But Jack Swagger is being billed as being 240. This guy's being billed as being 25 pounds bigger, and yet Jack Swagger was bigger than he is. So if you're going to put him in a match with a guy that's the same physical height as he is, and then continue to put his weight over something astronomically crazy. I mean, listen, I understand you're taking creative license, but you're also taking stupid creative license, because you could list him as 240 and he'd still be considered a big fucking guy. But you're saying that he's up into the 260s somewhere, and it's changing week to week because it just depends on which one of the morons of the writing department are working on his gimmick this week. Because it seems to be passed around a lot because there's no direct correlation week to week on what the fuck Baron Corbin's even about. He basically comes out under his 4 white lights that turn red inexplicably when he walks into them. I don't know, meaning that he's a badass, I guess. And then he comes out to the ring. He has a match, which is mediocre at best. And no, they just keep putting him over. Listen, here's what I'm going to say. I understand the WWE has a big guy fetish. I get it. And I've accepted it many times over the years, and I've even thrown my support behind it with Jack Swagger having that stupid "We the People" thing. I put that over like shit because it was hilarious. Corbin is supposed to be a biker badass who comes out with oiled up hair, not biker badassy, but whatever. And he does an awful lot of Triple H hair flips and Kevin Nash hair flips. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just cliche and been done a million times by big guys. And then he basically has a mediocre match, not stiff, not shoot, just a match with a guy that can arguably carry a wrestling match, but not do anything awesome or do anything that's going to stick out in your memory. Like if you want to put Baron Corbin over, let's find a finisher for Baron Corbin that's interesting. Instead of that boring ass face squash move that he does that looks so annoyingly like Bray Wyatt's that is just, it doesn't get over at all because Bray Wyatt's has the flash of him kissing the guy and flipping him and all that kind of shit. Whereas Corbin's is basically, it looks like how I lift my fucking kid up in the air followed by a spine buster. It's, I don't know, a reverse spine buster, what the fuck ever. But it looks fucking stupid. First of all, let's find a better finisher for him. Second of all, let's find an actual gimmick for him because I don't know what he's supposed to be. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel when I see him. I don't know what I'm supposed to infer from his goofy biker appearance. I know I'm not supposed to infer that I'm supposed to be intimidated by this guy. It's just fucking weird. Like there's no gimmick. If there is a gimmick, he's not selling it then. If there's some sort of storyline here that I'm unaware of, as a fucking like bored in the steel wool type mark that I am, then that's fucking sad that if I don't get what the fuck the gimmick is supposed to be, who the fuck else is supposed to get what the gimmick is supposed to be? I don't know. It's just weird. It was a match. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 because it was a match. There weren't any obvious, attempts to shoot on each other or stiff shot each other or just be otherwise cunty to one another. Two guys that worked a wrestling match that happened. So I wish I could put it over more than that, but I really can't. It lacked any kind of zest or flair of any kind. But it was a hell of a cool down match to give the wrestling fans there and at home a chance to catch their breath after the Slater and Rhino versus the Usos match. They get to see a match that pretty much put them to sleep before watching a match that probably gave some people heart attacks. Because Ziggler versus The Miz was probably the best Miz match I've ever seen in my life. And it's arguably one of the best matches he's ever had in his career. There were screwjob endings, crowd psychology, near falls, run-ins. The match was an exhibition of traditional wrestling in all of its glory. So, again, I guess, for the amount of times that Miz, and I don't know if the heat with Daniel Bryan is real or not, but I will say that having a traditional wrestling match that I gave 4.5 out of 5, like I like traditional wrestling, but there is a line where I stop because traditional wrestling has an awful lot of rest holds, which is probably why Daniel Bryan says it's a very safe way to Miz, in a very shoot style way, by the way. I'm still not convinced that was a fucking gimmick or a work, but Miz and Ziggler had a very much a traditional wrestling match. There wasn't a lot of flippy dippy bullshit. There was an awful lot of old school type gimmicks during that match. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. It was good because, like I said, screw jobs, good crowd psychology, near falls, run-ins, having Maurice play her heel valet gimmick to its obvious crescendo. having the Spirit Squad come out and do their shenanigans, stuff like that. Like, yeah, that's very much old school wrestling, and it was really good. I hate to say this because I do like Daniel Bryan, but it kind of shows that you don't need to do the flippy dippy jumping off the fucking top rope with a headbutt and fuck your neck up for the rest of your career kind of match in order to get over. It was Ziggler. Ziggler has a stiff style. Miz and he are old buddies. They put together a very well constructed, I thought. And if the writers get some credit on this, whatever, good. I'm glad you're finally doing a little bit of your work. But it was a well put together program. Had a clear cut ending to it. Miz is going away to shoot a movie for a while, and then when he comes back, they can resume this or do something else. What the fuck ever. Now Ziggler gets to have a little bit of fun with his old Mike Mondo and the other guy from the Spirit Squad there, so they can have their little fun in the ring and stuff. Ziggler can have the title for a little bit. That'd be great. I'm sure a lot of people that are big fans of Ziggler are going to appreciate that. But this was not a match that was just sort of put together on the fly with no build. It was good. And maybe some of the build promos were a little uncomfortable and weird at times, but it definitely was good and it was well constructed. And then the match put it over, and the fact that the match was entertaining enough to keep the announce team interested in it, so that they weren't talking about Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton coming up later, was much appreciated as well. Because the play-by-play people actually were talking about this match during the entire match. They didn't go off topic and start talking about something else. They actually talked about what was happening in the ring and stayed on fucking point with what was happening in the ring, which is kind of nice. After that was Naomi versus Alexa Bliss. Here's the thing, and I listen. I don't want it to seem like I don't like Naomi. I think she's a good wrestler. I just don't think she understands how to have a match from start to finish. I know that sounds really harsh, and I apologize for that sounding harsh, but it is what it is. She's a great wrestler in that she understands how to do moves safely, chain, in good motion. She did a great job of selling moves, just did not do as good a job at selling the effect of those moves over the course of the match. She came back way too easily, more than a few times, with Alexa giving her lots of room by talking shit to the fans and leaving the ring every now and then. Naomi could have come back and made it seem more real, her comeback. Instead, she'd be hurt and injured and hurt, and then Alexa would come into the ring, put a couple moves on her, which you would think logically would make whatever is already hurting hurt more, and then Naomi would just sort of rally and beat her or whatever. It was just very... She's a great wrestler who does not do a great job of telling a story in the ring. She sells a move when it happens. She just doesn't sell the effect of the move over the course of a match. And unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, Alexa Bliss was definitely the star of this match. She sold like a motherfucker. She's tiny by comparison. She made it believable that a person that is giving up what looks like about 30 or 40 pounds can legitimately kick someone else's ass. It was, to me, that was interesting and good. And I would say 2 out of 2.5 of those points go to her for carrying a match, essentially. Wyatt versus Randy Orton. We finally got this match. Here's the thing. Over the course of the night, it was we had lots of little promos building up to this. So it was, you were kind of being shown what was going to be the main event without being told that it was the main event right off the get-go, because the announcers don't tell you what the main event is anymore, because WWE doesn't believe in main events anymore, even though that's supposed to be what sells on pay-per-view, but whatever. What was building all night long was a lot of promos about how Bray Wyatt's getting in Randy's head, and then Randy's getting in Bray's head and fighting back, and we saw the same promo package about 6 times. It is what it is. What was really fucking weird and really amateurish, in my opinion, was the cameraman is on Randy in one of the last promos. I think it was before the Naomi and Alexa Bliss match. And it's over his shoulder and it's looking in a mirror in the bathroom, and Randy's face distorts in the mirror. So some moron in the production truck basically played with the image a little bit to make the face twist around. Very childish and amateurish. I mean, I get it. You're saying that Bray is in his head, I guess, for lack of a better term. I don't know. But there's just that kind of shenanigans and shit like that is all fine and well in movies and things like that. But if the secret's out, wrestling's fake. The secret's out that the ending is predetermined, that the Pandora's box has been opened. So when you do silly things like that, even for kids, they kind of just go, oh, come on. Like I watch these things sometimes with my kid, and this, she actually came in for the Naomi Alexa Bliss match, because I yelled at her that there was a women's match, and she comes running for those things. And, she sat down and watched this promo, and she went, really? Like, this is a kid that watches YouTube channels, and their production is of better quality than what the WWE is doing. I'm not saying YouTube channels don't have great production quality. I'm saying that a multi-million-dollar company should have better production than a YouTube channel, but whatever. The match itself, though, I gave 3.5 out of 5. Now, 3 out of 5 of those points are going to be for the great match that Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton put on. Half of that point is going to be for actually pretty brilliant use of Luke Harper. He didn't even fucking have to touch him. And that's what you have to have in one of these gimmick-heavy matches, is an actual end to what this fucking deal is so that you can move on to something else. All right. So I don't know, it was good. I enjoyed it. It was fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It was a gimmicky, fuck yes, but everything about Bray Wyatt is gimmicky, and that's fine. So, to cap off the show this week, after an interview, after fucking No Mercy coverage, we're going to stay in the WWE. So but I'm going to get rid of the WWE logo because of the topic that is going to be discussed now, which is Paige. Now, for those of you living under a rock, Paige has been suspended for a second wildness violation. This one is a 60-day suspension because it's her second one. So that means twice the penalty. It's very weird to try to figure out exactly what's going on here, because Paige is very carny, and everything she does is very kayfabe and carny. And nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it. The WWE is very kayfabe when it comes to things that can get them in legal trouble. So, WWE has yet to tell anybody what the actual wellness violation is about that she's violated. They didn't tell us anything about the first one, and they didn't tell us anything about the second one. And by the way, Paige is still on the DL for this neck injury. Now, there is a legitimate and publicly fought fight between WWE's medical department and Paige's doctor, in that Paige's doctor asserts that Paige needs neck surgery, that there's something wrong with her neck. Now, I'm going to bring up. Here's the thing. This is all very alleged, and I'm going to use alleged a lot when I'm going on this, because this was posted by Alberto Rodriguez, aka Del Rio, aka El Patron. Okay, so he posted this thing up on Twitter this week, which was allegedly a text message sent from Paige's doctor to Paige. And it says that she has a herniated disc at the C6 and 7, pushing on the exit of the C7 nerve root and causing all of, and this is why I don't think it's a doctor, but whatever, all of her pain in the upper body and some of her neck pain. And then the doctor went on to say, allegedly, apologies, allegedly, you have a lot of wear and tear for your age. I don't know if he's talking about her vagina at that point or if he's talking about her neck, but whatever. So here's the thing. I'm going to read this word for word, the part that's making this sound like bullshit. Okay. So it says in this thing, on the exit of the C7 nerve root and causing all your R side upper extremity pain and some of your neck pain. So I'm going to assume that means all of your right side upper extremity pain and not just a misspelling or anything like that, and some of your neck pain. the text is written. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this. I'm going to make it big, and I'm going to put it on the feed so you guys can see it. So there it is. Wow, you really can't read that. That's fucking bullshit. Okay, let's make it bigger. That way you guys can actually see it. There you go. Okay, now, a disc herniation. Pretty common injury with wrestlers. C6 and 7 disc hernias do push on nerve bundles and fuck people's necks up. All that stuff sounds legit. What doesn't sound legit is that Del Rio throws it up there on Twitter as though it's evidence that the doctor says that she's got this, that, and the other. Okay. Now, WWE claims that she does not need a neck injury, or she doesn't have a neck injury. She's been out for a few months now. WWE claims that she's out with an undiagnosed neck injury. So she's complaining about pain in her neck and numbness in her extremities. The WWE doctors will pull her because even if she's not, the psychological effect of feeling like you are can cause you to hurt other people or hurt yourself. Now, like I said, Alberto's probably not the most unbiased person in the world. But, he's claiming that she does have. And Paige this week and last week has claimed that she has a doctor's note for both the painkillers that supposedly were triggered on the wellness violation, which she's claiming is a drug related wellness violation, even though WWE hasn't confirmed or denied that. I do think it's very weird that WWE's even not confirming or denying it, since they've done it with alcohol in the past, but whatever. Supposedly she has a doctor's note and a prescription for the painkillers that she's on and the steroids that she's on, because if she's going through rehab or trying to rehab the neck without getting surgery on it, she's going to need steroids to help build the muscles if the muscles have atrophied at this point. So if she's got a doctor's note and a prescription, that should be good. And apparently she's claiming that she's given those to the WWE and that they're claiming they don't have it, or maybe they don't recognize it, or what the fuck ever. And so she triggers another suspension. It seems like these suspensions are coming hard and fast. And if she violates wellness, I think it's 3 times and you're out. I think it's a 3-strike you're out rule. Perhaps they're trying to get her into a position where they can fire her without violating her contract. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But on another note, I thought it was really interesting. This week, TMZ caught Alberto and Paige out in public somewhere, and the interviewer guy was congratulating Alberto on being hired as the president of Mexico's first MMA company. Now, that's fucking cool. I mean, he's legitimately into MMA and has legitimately competed in MMA. Now, when I looked it all up, for those of you keeping score at home, while he has not been in the UFC, Alberto has more fights than Brock and Punk combined, and more wins than them combined too. Although that's not really that difficult with Punk, but Alberto's MMA standings are 9 wins, 5 losses. Brock has 6 wins, 3 losses, and Punk, of course, has the 1 loss. Which, by the way, Dana White this week did a press release saying that it's unlikely that Punk will be in another UFC pay-per-view. Now, that's not to say that he wouldn't be in maybe one of their subsidiary MMA companies, which would still be covered under his UFC contract. So a lot of people were on Facebook and Twitter and shit blowing up Dana White's spot, saying that, Punk's got a 3-fight or 4-fight deal, whatever the fuck. He could be on one of the subsidiary companies. It doesn't specify that he has to be on the UFC's main roster, I guess, for lack of a better term. But anyways, being named the president of an MMA company, that's good at his stage in his career. I mean, he's stated numerous times that for the next couple of years, he's going to take not as many bookings as he used to, but enough bookings. And then he's going to retire from pro wrestling. So let's be real. He's not going to be able to actually compete in MMA fights well into his 40s and stuff like that. But, being the president of an MMA company, like being Mexico's Dana White, that's a pretty fucking cool job. Why not? Why not do that shit? He's very politic when he's being interviewed in front of a camera. I just think on Twitter, people forget that, it is a real place and people will take that and run with it. So, there is that. Well, that's it for wrestling for this week. Now, there's a couple little minor announcements. Minor announcement, I guess. Just one. Starting next week, I'm going to have a really weird recording schedule for the live show. So if you guys want to show up live, you're more than welcome to. I love having people in chat room. Sometimes it distracts me. You'll see me glancing over like this to my little chat room window. I'll get distracted by it every now and then. If it pertains to what's going on the show, I'll usually mention it and who said it. Give you guys credit, even talk with you guys in your chat room and whatnot. And of course, you're all welcome to call in and shoot the shit or blow up my spot or whatever the fuck you want to do. But the recording schedule is going to be a little bit weird. I'm going to try to stick to a recording schedule, which is I will do the live show a couple hours earlier, so at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to join in the chat at markoutradio.com, you're more than welcome to. For the next, till after Christmas anyways, I'm going to start doing the live shows at 3 p.m. Eastern. So you're welcome to show up there. And why? Why the fuck am I doing this? Well, I'm going to be doing a writing workshop for kids on Sundays during this time period. Sorry, it just sort of worked out that way. It just seems to be the most relevant place for all the kids and fits in with all their schedules with all the other shit that they're up to and stuff like that these days. So in this time slot, I'm going to be out doing some writing workshop shit with kids, which is going to be a lot of fun for me and my little way of giving back. And the show itself, the live version of the show, is going to get recorded a couple hours earlier. And of course, it'll just be available. So for you guys to download the podcast, you guys to go to check out the YouTube when it's all up there, it'll all be pretty much up there around the same time. So yeah, you guys will be able to do that. And that's it. That's it for me this week. So I don't know if you guys like that first interview that I did with Sam Lucia. Be sure to let me know. Shoot me a message on YouTube, shoot me a Twitter, Facebook group, whatever. Go to check out markoutradio.com. All the links for all the stuff is up in there, so go check it out. And you know what? That's going to be it for me this week. I'm out of here. See you guys next week at a couple hours earlier.
Well, that was an abortion of a show. Should the mood take you, check out markoutradio.com and leave a comment. You can also find links there to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Stitcher channels. You can even leave a voicemail on our Skype. Just click the links and share them.